2 weeks passed before Taiho could walk again. The medical technology on the survey station was advanced, able to repair damage that would have been permanent on Earth. His leg had been rebuilt with synthetic materials and biological patches. His burns had healed without scars. His body was whole again, but the memories remained. He stood at the observation window, looking down at Varith 7. The planet looked peaceful from up here, green and blue and wrapped in soft clouds. You could not see the death waiting below. You could not see the creatures with glowing teeth or the plants that killed with a touch. Gina found him there, as she often did these days. "The ambassador wants to see you," she said. "Official meeting in the command room." "About what?" He did not say. "But Commander Celix will be there too. And some others from the Galactic Council." Taiho raised an eyebrow. "Council members? For me?" "You did something impossible, Taiho. People are curious." He followed her through the station corridors, walking carefully on his new leg. It worked well, better than the original in some ways, but it still felt strange. Like wearing shoes that did not quite fit. The command room was crowded. Ambassador Krillith stood at the center, surrounded by holographic displays showing faces from a dozen different species. Commander Celix was there, along with Specialist Vorin and the soldiers who had helped rescue Taiho. Everyone turned to look when he entered. "Yun Taiho," Krillith said formally. "Please come forward." Taiho walked to the center of the room, feeling very aware of all the alien eyes watching him. These were beings from species that had traveled between stars for thousands of years. Species that had seen everything the universe had to offer, and they were looking at him like he was something new. 9 planetary cycles, Krillith began. That is how long you survived alone on Varith 7, in absolute death terrain. Without equipment, without support, without any of the advantages that other species require. "It was not that impressive," Taiho said. "I had training. And luck. Training and luck," Krillith repeated. His insect face showed nothing, but his voice had a strange tone. "We have reviewed the data from your survival period. You created fire using primitive methods. You found safe water by observation and testing. You formed an alliance with a native creature that warned you of dangers. You climbed a cliff face with a broken leg. You left trail markers so rescue teams could follow." One of the holographic faces, a being made of crystalline structures, spoke. "Our databases contain records of survival attempts on Varith 7 by 37 different species. All of them failed. Most lasted less than 1 planetary cycle before death. You lasted 9, another face said. Something like a giant floating jellyfish. And when rescue came, you were still moving. Still trying to survive. Still refusing to die." Taiho did not know what to say. He had just done what his training taught him, what his instincts demanded. Giving up had never been an option. Commander Celix stepped forward. "When the human woman, Park Gina, insisted on searching for you, we told her it was impossible. We told her the data was clear. No species survives Varith 7 alone. She refused to accept this. Because she knew me," Taiho said. "She knew I would not stop fighting." "Yes," Celix agreed. "And that is what confuses us. How did she know? How could she be certain you would defy all probability and survive?" Gina answered before Taiho could. "Because that is what humans do. We have been defying probability since before we could count. Our entire history is a list of things that should have killed us, but did not." Ambassador Krillith made his clicking sound. "We are beginning to understand this. After your survival, we conducted extensive research into human history. What we found was disturbing." "Disturbing?" Taiho frowned. "Your species survived an ice age that covered half your planet. You survived a volcanic event that reduced your population to perhaps 10,000 individuals. You survived diseases that killed hundreds of millions. You survived wars that could have ended civilization. Krill's forearms moved in a gesture of confusion. By every calculation, humanity should be extinct. You should not have survived long enough to develop agriculture, let alone space travel. The mathematics simply do not work. And yet here we are, Gina said. Yes, here you are. Krillith looked at the holographic council members. This is why we have gathered. To discuss the implications. The crystalline being spoke again. For 50,000 years, we have classified planets and species according to strict criteria. Death worlds were considered barriers to intelligent life. No species could evolve true civilization under such conditions. This was accepted science. But humans did, the jellyfish being added. They evolved on a death world and thrived. They developed technology, art, philosophy, space travel, all while fighting against an environment that should have destroyed them. This changes things, Krillith said. If humans can do this, what else can they do? What other impossible things might they achieve? Taiho looked around the room. He saw fear in some of the alien faces, confusion in others. But in Commander Celix's yellow eyes and the Specialist Voron's young face, he saw something different. Admiration. We are not magic, Taiho said quietly. We do not have special powers. We break bones and get sick and die like anyone else. But somewhere in our evolution, we develop something that keeps us going when we should stop. Call it stubbornness. Call it determination. Call it the refusal to accept the impossible. He looked at Gina, remembering how she had refused to give up on him. That thing is not supernatural, he continued. It is just who we are. Every human carries it. The will to survive. The need to keep fighting even when fighting makes no sense. Maybe it evolved because we had to. Maybe our planet forced us to become this way. But it is part of us now. It will always be part of us. The room was silent. Finally, Ambassador Krillith spoke. The Galactic Council has voted to reclassify Verith 7. It will no longer be listed as absolute death terrain. Taiho blinked. What? Instead, it will be classified as human survivable death terrain. The first designation of its kind. Krillith's insect face turned toward him. Because you proved that humans are different. You showed us that our categories were incomplete. We are also recommending a review of human classification, the crystalline being added. You are currently listed as a minor species, new to galactic affairs. This no longer seems accurate. Taiho did not know what to say. He had gone into a jungle to do his job and nearly died. Now alien councils were changing their entire understanding of the universe because of him. I just wanted to survive, he said simply. That is all. Commander Celix nodded slowly. And that is exactly the point. You just wanted to survive. Such a simple thing. But you wanted it so strongly that reality itself bent to accommodate you. The meeting ended with formal statements and diplomatic agreements. Taiho and Gina walked out together, leaving the aliens to discuss the implications of what had happened. Outside the station, through the observation windows, Verith 7 continued its slow rotation below. Somewhere on that deadly planet, in a jungle that had killed so many, a small creature with sunset-colored fur was hunting for food and sleeping in hollow trees. Taiho wondered if it remembered him, if it had any concept of the strange walking thing that had stumbled through its world and somehow lived. Do you think they will really change how they see us? Gina asked. Maybe. Does it matter? It might. If other species start believing humans can do impossible things, they might treat us differently, give us more respect, take us more seriously. Taiho smiled. Or they might fear us, think we are dangerous because we do not know when to quit. Are we dangerous? He thought about the question seriously. Humans had created terrible weapons, started devastating wars, nearly destroyed their own planet. But they had also created beauty and art and love. They had reached for the stars even when they could barely walk. They had refused to accept limits that every other species in the galaxy considered absolute. "We are survivors," he finally said. "That is all we have ever been. What we do with that survival is up to us." A news broadcast played on a screen nearby. The story was about Varoth 7, about the human who had survived absolute death terrain. Species across the galaxy were discussing what it meant. Some were skeptical. Others were amazed. A few were afraid. But at the bottom of the broadcast, in the comments section that beings across the galaxy could contribute to, a Valorian scholar had written something simple. "Perhaps we have misunderstood what it means to be fragile." Taiho read the words and smiled. In the end, it was not strength that had saved him. Not weapons or advanced technology or special powers. It was the simple human refusal to accept death. The ancient programming in his brain that said, "Keep going, keep fighting, do not stop." Every human carried this gift. Every human was capable of the impossible. They just had to choose it. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and bright in the endless darkness. Somewhere out there, other death worlds waited. Other impossible challenges that would test the limits of what beings could survive. And somewhere, on those distant worlds, humans would face those challenges and survive, because that is what humans do. The second storm was coming fast. Jina watched it on the scanner, a massive wall of darkness eating the horizon. Lightning flashed inside the clouds, purple and green and angry. The weather system was 3 times larger than the first one. When it hit, nothing would survive on the exposed cliff face. "We have maybe 90 minutes, Varn said, his voice tight with worry. "After that, we must return to the station or die." "Then we find him in 90 minutes, Gina replied. They had returned to the survey station to refuel and gather supplies. Ambassador Krillith had tried to stop them from going back down, calling it waste of resources and foolish emotion. But something had changed in Commander Celix. The old Horthian had spent his life following data and logic. His species had traveled between stars for thousands of years by trusting numbers and probabilities. Everything he knew said that Yuntaiho should be dead, but the evidence said otherwise. And more than that, something about the human woman's determination had touched a part of Salix he thought was long dead. A refusal to accept the impossible reminded him of stories from his own species' ancient past. Before they became careful and logical and cold. "I am coming with you again," he had told Gina, "and I am bringing soldiers." Now their shuttle descended through the darkening sky, carrying Gina, Celix, Vorn, and 2 Horthian warriors named Calix and Bren. They were young and strong and trained for combat. They had never been to Vera 7 before. "The jungle looks angry," Calix said, watching through the window. "The jungle is always angry," Celix replied. "That is why no one survives here." "One person is surviving," Gina said quietly. They flew toward the cliff face that Taiho had been climbing. The rock wall rose out of the jungle like a giant's tooth, ray and steep, and covered with strange growths. Near the top, through gaps in the clouds, they could see a flat summit. "If he made it to the top, he will be there," Gina said. "That is where I would go. Open ground, visibility, space for a rescue shuttle to land." "If he made it," Bren said, "that climb looks impossible." Gina did not respond. She had stopped arguing with aliens about what was possible for humans. She would simply show them. On the cliff summit, Taiho was barely conscious. The climb had taken everything he had. His hands were raw and bleeding. His injured leg had stopped hurting, which was bad, because it meant the nerves were damaged. His body was running out of energy, using the last reserves of strength that every human carries for emergencies, but he had made it. The summit was flat and wide, covered with low plants and strange flowers that glowed softly in the dim light. The storm clouds were closing in, blocking the sun. Taiho lay on his back and watched lightning dance across the sky. He thought about his family back on Earth, his mother, who had taught him that giving up was never an option, his father, who had survived a mining accident that killed everyone else in his team, his little sister, who was probably in school right now, not knowing that her brother was dying on an alien world. "Sorry," he whispered to the sky. "I tried." Then he heard something, a sound that did not belong to the jungle. A mechanical hum, growing louder. Engines. Taiho forced himself to sit up, ignoring the pain that exploded through his body. Through the gathering storm clouds, he saw lights. A shuttle, descending toward the summit. They had come for him. He tried to stand, but his leg finally gave up completely. He fell forward, catching himself with his hands, and started crawling toward the landing area instead. Every meter was agony. Every breath hurt. But he kept moving. He would not give up now. Not when rescue was so close. The shuttle landed hard, buffeted by winds that were getting stronger every second. The door opened, and Gina jumped out before the ramp had fully extended. "Taiho!" She screamed, running toward the figure crawling across the ground. She reached him and fell to her knees beside him. He looked terrible, covered in blood and mud and burns. His leg was swollen to twice its normal size. His face was pale beneath the dirt, but he was smiling. "Took you long enough," he said. Gina laughed and cried at the same time. "You stubborn idiot. You wonderful, stubborn idiot." She helped him up, putting his arm over her shoulder. The Horthian soldiers ran to help, taking his weight between them. They carried him toward the shuttle as the storm reached the cliff edge. Lightning struck the ground 50 meters away. The thunder was so loud it felt like a physical blow. The plants around them began to burn from the electrical discharge. "Move!" Celix shouted. "Move now!" They ran, dragging, carrying, pulling Taiho toward safety. The wind screamed around them. Rain began to fall, thick and heavy and filled with strange chemicals that burned the skin. Ren stumbled and nearly dropped. "Taiho!" Calix caught them both and kept going. Voren was at the shuttle door, reaching out to help pull them inside. Lightning struck again, closer this time. So close that Gina felt her hair stand up from the electricity. They tumbled into the shuttle. The door closed. The engine screamed as the pilot fought against the storm. "Go!" Celix ordered. "Get us out of here." The shuttle lifted off, shaking violently in the wind. Through the windows, they could see the cliff summit disappearing into the storm, swallowed by darkness and lightning. But they were safe. They were alive. Taiho lay on the shuttle floor, surrounded by aliens who had never believed a human could survive what he had survived. Gina held his hand, not saying anything, just letting him know she was there. "How?" Calix asked quietly. "How did you survive 9 planetary cycles and absolute death terrain?" Taiho opened his eyes. They were tired, but still bright, still alive. "I made fire, found water, climbed toward the sky. The same things humans have been doing for 1,000,000 years. But the predators," Bren said, "the poison plants, the terrain, everything on this planet is designed to kill." "Everything on my planet was designed to kill too," Taiho replied. "We survived it. We survived ice ages and supervolcanoes and predators that could tear us apart. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived ourselves." He coughed, wincing at the pain. Compared to human history, this jungle was just a bad camping trip. Celix watched the human with something new in his eyes. In his thousands of years of life, he had seen many species. Strong species. Smart species. Powerful species with technology that could destroy worlds. But he had never seen anything like human determination. The absolute refusal to accept death. The willingness to fight against impossible odds with nothing but will and stubbornness. It was illogical. It was foolish. It went against every principle of survival that evolved. Species should follow, and it was magnificent. The shuttle broke through the storm clouds and into clear sky above. The survey station appeared in the distance, a small spot of light against the stars. They had made it. In the medical bay later, as doctors worked on Taiho's injuries. Ambassador Krillith came to see for himself. The Valorian diplomat looked at the human on the bed, covered in bandages and connected to healing machines. Taiho was sleeping now, finally allowing himself to rest. How? Krillith asked Gina, who sat beside the bed. Your species has no special abilities, no natural weapons, no biological advantages. How did he survive what killed everyone else? Gina looked at her friend, at the man who had refused to die even when the universe demanded it. Because he did not know he could not, she said. Because no one told him it was impossible until after he had already done it. Krillith's insect face showed no emotion, but his forearms hung loose at his sides, a sign of deep thought among his people. Perhaps, he said slowly, we have been classifying your species incorrectly. Gina smiled. Perhaps you have. Outside the station, Vara 7 continued to spin in the darkness, its deadly jungle covering a planet that had killed so many. In the galactic databases, it was still marked as absolute death terrain, but somewhere in the records, a small note was being added. A note about a species that survived where survival was impossible. A species that used primitive fire and simple determination to defeat a world designed for death. A note about humans. And somewhere far below, on the jungle floor, a small creature with sunset-colored fur looked up at the stars and remembered the walking thing that had shared its food. Had hoped the walking thing had found its way home. The drones returned with images that changed everything. Gina stood in the command room, surrounded by aliens who had already accepted Taiho's death. On the screen in front of them, the drone footage played in silence. Dense jungle, broken branches, a path through the vegetation that should not exist. There, Gina said, pointing at the screen. And there. And there. Commander Celix leaned closer. I see nothing. Look at the branches. They are broken at this height, not higher or lower. Something moved through here deliberately, pushing them aside. And here, on this rock, you can see marks, footprints, human footprints. Ambassador Krillith made his clicking sound again. This proves nothing. The footprints could be from before the storm. The mud is fresh, Gina said. The rain would have washed away old prints. These were made in the last few hours. She moved to another screen. And here, you see this? A piece of fabric caught on a thorn. Standard survey team uniform material. The room was silent. Specialist Warren spoke first. She is right. The evidence suggests movement with purpose. Not a creature dragging a body. Something walking. Commander Celix's claws tapped against the console. His yellow eyes studied the images again and again. This is unusual. No species in our records has ever moved through Varus 7 terrain without equipment. Humans are not in your records, Gina said. Not properly. You have data about our biology, our history, our technology. But you do not understand what we are capable of. Krillith waved two of his arms in dismissal. Even if your colleague is alive, what does it matter? We cannot mount a rescue operation into absolute death terrain. The cost would be too high. The cost? Gina turned to face him. One shuttle. One team. A few hours of risk. That is the cost of a human life to you? It is the cost of many lives, Krillith said. Any rescue team we send would face the same dangers. We could lose 5 people trying to save one. The mathematics are clear. Then I will go alone. Everyone in the room looked at her. You would die, Celix said simply. Maybe, or maybe I would find him and bring him back. Either way, no one else risks anything. Krillith laughed, a strange bubbling sound. One human going to rescue another human in conditions that kill everyone. This is foolishness. This is what humans do, Gina said. We do not leave our people behind. It is not in our nature. She turned to leave, and Vorin stepped forward. I will help you. Everyone stared at him now. The young Horthian stood straight, though his scales had paled slightly with fear. Vorin, Celix said slowly, you are a technician. You have no combat training, no survival experience. I can pilot a scout pod, Vorin replied. I can operate scanning equipment. And I am curious. He looked at Gina. I want to see if the human is right. I want to know if survival is truly impossible, or if we have simply been measuring the wrong things. A long silence filled the room. Finally, Commander Celix made a decision. 1 descent. 2 hours maximum. If you find nothing, you return. If conditions become dangerous, you return. These are not requests. Gina nodded. Understood. And I am coming with you, Celix added. Krillith's insect face showed something that might have been surprise. Commander? Someone must ensure protocol is followed, Celix said. But something in his voice suggested another reason. Curiosity, perhaps. Or something else that cold reptilian minds rarely felt. Hope. The scout pod descended through the clouds as the sun rose. Over Vareth 7. Gina sat at the forward window, scanning the jungle below with equipment designed to find life signs. Vorin piloted with careful precision. Celix watched everything with those ancient yellow eyes. Approaching last known coordinates, Vorin announced. The jungle below was thick and endless. Green and purple and colors that had no name in human language. Steam rose from the canopy as morning heat fought against night's moisture. It looked beautiful and deadly at the same time. I am detecting something, Gina said suddenly. Not a clear life sign, but thermal variations. Something producing heat that does not match the environment. Animals produce heat, Celix noted. Not like this. This is concentrated, controlled, like a fire. Fire? Vorin sounded confused. What creature uses fire? Gina almost smiled. Humans do. They descended lower, following the thermal signature. The jungle closed around them, massive trees scraping against the pod's hull. Gina kept her eyes on the scanner, watching the signal grow stronger. Then she saw it. A small clearing, barely visible through the canopy. Burned wood in a circle. And nearby, marks on the trees. Cuts made by a knife. Arrows pointing upward. He is climbing, Gina whispered. He's heading for higher ground. Why would he do that? Vorin asked. Because that is what survival training teaches. High ground means better visibility. Better signals. Better chances. Gina felt something warm spreading through her chest. Pride, maybe. Or relief. He is not just surviving. He is thinking. He is planning. Celix leaned forward to look at the marks. These are deliberate, organized. He is leaving a trail. For us to follow, Gina said. He knew someone would come looking. He trusted that we would not give up. Krillith's voice came through the communication system from the station above. Your time is running out. Have you found the body? We have found evidence of survival, Celix replied. The human is alive and moving with purpose. Silence from the station. That is not possible, Krillith finally said. And yet it is happening. Celix looked at Gina with something new in his eyes. Not dismissal. Not pity. Something closer to respect. The human is doing something our databases say cannot be done. On the jungle floor, far below the pod, a small creature with sunset-colored fur watched the strange metal object pass overhead. It had been following the tall walking thing for hours now, ever since it shared food with the creature. The walking thing was strange. It moved wrong. It smelled wrong. It made sounds that had no meaning. But it had given food freely, without threat or demand. And when danger came, it fought with light and heat. The creature understood danger. It understood survival. And it understood, in its simple way, that the walking thing was trying very hard to live. So it followed. And it warned. And when the walking thing looked at it with those strange flat eyes, the creature felt something it had never felt before. Connection. Now the walking thing was climbing the big rock wall, moving slowly because one of its legs did not work properly. The creature could not follow there. The rock was too steep, too smooth for its small paws. It sat at the bottom and made its cawing sound. The walking thing looked back and made sounds in return. They did not understand each other's words, but somehow they understood each other. The walking thing continued climbing. The creature watched until it disappeared over the edge far above. Then it turned and ran through the jungle, heading for the place where the metal object had been. Perhaps, it thought in its simple way, there were more walking things. Perhaps they were looking for the one who had been kind. Perhaps it could help. Above, Gina marked the climbing trail on her scanner. The storm had ended, but time was still running out. Another weather system was approaching, bigger than the first. If they did not find Taiho before it arrived, no amount of human stubbornness would save him. "We need to go higher," she said. "He is heading for the cliff summit. That is where we will find him." Celix nodded. "Then that is where we go." The pod climbed through the green sky, following the trail of a man who refused to die. Pain was the first thing Taiho felt. It started in his left leg and spread upward to his whole body like fire. He was lying on something wet and soft. The air smelled like rotting plants and something else, something chemical that burned his nose. When he tried to move, his leg screamed at him to stop. "Okay," he whispered to himself. "Okay, not dead yet." He opened his eyes slowly. Above him, far above, he could see a tiny patch of dark sky through the jungle canopy. Lightning flashed green, lighting up the massive trees that surrounded him. He had fallen at least 50 meters down a ravine, crashing through branches and leaves until he hit the ground. The fact that he was alive at all was a miracle. Taiho took a deep breath and began to check his body. His left leg was badly hurt, maybe broken. His right arm had deep cuts, but still worked. His head was bleeding from somewhere, but he could think clearly. Everything else seemed functional. He touched his belt and found his small survival kit still attached. Good. His communication device had been destroyed in the fall. Nothing but broken pieces now. His scanner was also dead. He was completely alone with no way to contact anyone. The Galactic database said this planet was a death zone. No species could survive here alone. Taiho looked around at the dark jungle and almost laughed. "Guess nobody told me that," he said. Moving was difficult. He found a thick branch and used his knife to cut it into a walking stick. Every step sent pain through his leg, but he kept going. Staying in one place meant dying. That was the first rule of survival. Keep moving. The jungle was alive around him. Strange sounds came from every direction. Clicks and whistles and deep rumbling noises that shook the ground. Eyes glowed in the darkness, watching him. The plants themselves seemed to move, their leaves turning to follow him as he passed. He found water first. A small stream running between black rocks. The water glowed faintly blue, which was never a good sign. But he had a small testing kit in his survival pack, and after checking it, he found that the water was safe to drink. The glow came from tiny creatures living in it, harmless to humans. Small victory. Food was harder. Most of the plants around him were toxic according to his training, but he found a type of fungus growing on dead wood that his body could process. It tasted like dirt and chemicals, but it would keep him alive. Night fell completely, and the jungle became truly terrifying. Bioluminescent predators moved through the darkness. They were like nothing he had ever seen. Some had too many legs. Some had no legs at all, sliding through the mud like massive snakes made of light. Their bodies glowed in different colors, purple and green and sickly yellow. One of them found him. It was the size of a large dog, with 6 legs and a face full of teeth that glowed white. It circled his position, making a sound like metal scraping against glass. Taiho reached into his survival kit and found what he was looking for. A small fire-starting tool, basic technology that worked on any planet. He gathered dead leaves and dry fungus, working quickly while the creature watched. The fire caught. The effect was immediate. The creature screamed, a horrible sound that echoed through the jungle, and ran away into the darkness. The light from the flames pushed back the shadows, and Taiho saw other glowing eyes retreating. Fire, the oldest human tool. The thing that had kept his ancestors alive in caves millions of years ago. These alien predators had never seen it before. They had never evolved to understand it. Taiho sat beside his small fire and allowed himself a moment of hope. Above the planet, on the survey station, Gina was not sleeping. She sat in the data room, surrounded by screens showing everything known about Varus 7, maps of the terrain, lists of dangerous species, weather patterns, and geological data. The other aliens had gone to rest. Even Commander Celix had accepted that nothing could be done until the storm ended. But Gina kept working. A sound made her look up. Specialist Voran stood in the doorway, his young Horthian face uncertain. "You should sleep," he said. "Your species requires it." "I will sleep when I find him," Gina replied. Voran entered the room slowly. "May I ask you something?" "Yes. Why do you believe he is still alive?" "The data clearly shows that survival is impossible." Gina leaned back in her chair. "Do you know what a death world is?" "Yes. A planet with conditions so hostile that intelligent life should not be able to develop there." "Earth is classified as a death world," Gina said. "Our gravity is too high. Our weather is too extreme. We have earthquakes and volcanoes and hurricanes. 70% of our surface is covered in water that would kill us if we drank it. Predators hunted us for millions of years. Diseases killed billions of us before we learned to fight them." Voran blinked. "I did not know this. Most species do not. They see humans as small and weak and new to space. They do not understand what it took for us to get here." Gina pointed at the screen showing Varus 7. "This planet is dangerous." "I am not denying that. But Taiho was raised on a death world. He trained to survive impossible conditions. And he is too stubborn to die quietly." "Stubbornness is not a survival advantage," Voran said. "You would be surprised." On the planet's surface, Taiho was climbing. His legs screamed with every movement, but he kept going up. The ravine walls were steep but climbable, covered in thick vines that supported his weight. He had made a decision during the night. The jungle floor was too dangerous. Too many predators, too many hazards. But higher ground meant better chances. Maybe he could find a clearing. Maybe he could signal for help somehow. Or maybe he would die trying. Either way, he was not going to sit and wait for death. Dawn came slowly on Varus 7. The light was green and strange, filtered through clouds and jungle canopy. Taiho had climbed perhaps 20 meters up from where he started. His hands were bleeding. His injured leg was swelling badly, but he was still alive. A small creature appeared on a branch near his head. It had 6 legs and fur the color of sunset. Its eyes were large and black, watching him with something like curiosity. Taiho stopped moving. In survival training, they taught that small creatures were often the most dangerous. This one could be venomous. It could call larger predators. It could be a trap. The creature made a soft sound, almost like a question. Slowly, carefully, Taiho reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of the fungus he had collected. He held it out toward the creature, that had sniffed the offering, then took it gently and began to eat. Taiho smiled despite everything. "Making friends is also a survival skill," he whispered. The creature finished eating and looked at him again. Then it made a different sound, urgent and sharp, and looked toward the jungle below. Seconds later, Taiho heard it too. Something large was moving through the trees, coming his way. The creature looked at him one more time, made the warning sound again, then disappeared into the leaves. Taiho started climbing faster. His leg meant nothing now. Speed was everything above the planet. The storm was finally ending. Commander Celix prepared the drones for deployment. He did not expect to find anything alive, but somewhere in his cold reptilian heart, a small part of him wondered if the human woman might be right. He had been wrong about species before. The storm came without warning. Park Gina was standing near the edge of the landing platform when the sky turned from green to black in less than 30 seconds. She had been watching the survey team below. Small figures moving through the thick jungle of Vera 7. Now she could not see anything at all. "All teams, return to base immediately," Commander Celix ordered through the communication system. His voice was calm but urgent. The Horthian officer had scales the color of dark stone, and his yellow eyes never showed fear. But Gina had learned to read other signs. The way his claws tapped against the console told her everything. This was bad. The electromagnetic readings on her screen went crazy. Numbers jumped up and down without pattern. The jungle below was famous for its strange mineral deposits, and during storms like this, all their equipment became useless. "I cannot reach Team 3, a technician reported. "Signal is completely blocked." Team 3. That was Yun Taiho's team. Gina moved to the communication station and pushed the technician aside. She was not a soldier or a commander, just a xenobiologist studying alien plants. But Taiho was her friend. They had trained together on Earth, traveled to 6 different planets together, and survived things that should have killed them both. "Taiho, respond," she said into the microphone. "Team 3, do you copy?" Nothing but static answered her. Ambassador Krillith walked into the command room. The Valorian diplomat was tall and thin, with 4 arms and a face like an insect. His people had been traveling between stars for 50,000 years, and they looked at humans the way humans might look at children learning to walk. "How many are missing?" Krillith asked. "1 team of 4, Commander Celix replied. 3 Horthian soldiers and 1 human specialist. The human is Yun Taiho," Gina added. "Survival specialist, experienced in hostile environments." Krillith made a clicking sound with his mouth. In his language, it meant something like disappointment mixed with acceptance. "Then we must prepare the death records." Gina turned to face him. "What?" "The jungle of Vera 7 is classified as absolute death terrain," Krillith explained slowly, as if talking to a child. "No known species has survived alone on the surface for more than 2 planetary cycles. That is approximately 18 of your Earth hours. The plants are toxic. The predators are endless. The terrain itself is hostile. Your friend is already dead, or he will be soon." "You do not know that," Gina said. "I know the statistics," Krillith replied. "Every species in the galactic database has tried to survive on Vareth 7 at some point. military expeditions with full equipment, explorers with the best technology, scientists protected by force fields. All of them died. The jungle does not allow survival. Commander Celix nodded slowly. The ambassador speaks truth. When the storm ends, we will send drones to recover the bodies. But a rescue mission is not possible. Gina felt cold anger building in her chest. You are giving up? Already? The storm just started. We are being practical, Celix said. A rescue mission in this terrain would require heavy vehicles, armed escorts, medical teams, and constant air support. Even then, we would likely lose more people than we save. The math does not work. Math? Gina's voice rose. We are talking about people. About my friend. We are talking about reality, Krillith said. Humans have been part of the galactic community for only 60 years. You have not yet learned that some things are simply impossible. Vareth 7 is one of those things. Nothing survives there alone. Nothing. Gina looked around the room. The other aliens avoided her eyes. She saw Specialist Varn, a young Horthian technician, watching her with something that might have been sympathy. But he said nothing. The storm continued outside, lightning flashing green and purple through the windows. How long until we can send drones? Gina asked quietly. 6 hours minimum, Celix answered. Perhaps longer. 6 hours. Taiho had to survive 6 hours in what every species in the galaxy called a death zone. And even then, they were only sending drones to find his body. Gina walked to the observation window and looked down at the planet below. The clouds were thick and angry, hiding everything. Somewhere down there, if he was still alive. Taiho was alone. She remembered something he had told her once. During their training on Earth, they had been learning about human history, about how their ancestors survived ice ages and crossed deserts and lived through disasters that should have ended their species. You know what humans are good at? Taiho had said, we are good at not dying. Give us nothing but rocks and sticks, and we will find a way. It is in our blood. At the time, Gina had laughed. It sounded like a joke, like something someone says to feel better about being a small species in a very large universe. Now, standing in a room full of aliens who had already written her friend off as dead, those words meant something different. Ambassador, she said without turning around. Has any human ever been stranded alone on Vareth 7 before? No, Krillith replied. Your species has no history with this world. Then how do you know a human cannot survive it? Silence. Gina turned to face them. Your statistics are based on other species. Your calculations use data from Horthians and Valorians and whoever else tried before. But humans are different. We come from a world that would kill most of you. We evolved to survive the impossible. Krillith's insect face showed no emotion, but his forearms crossed in a gesture of dismissal. Every species believes it is special. Every species learns otherwise. Maybe, Gina said. But until you show me proof that Taiho is dead, I will not accept it. She walked toward the door. Where are you going? Celix asked. To study maps of the terrain. To learn everything about that jungle. And when the storm ends, I will find a way to bring him back. That is not logical, Krillith said. Jin stopped at the door and looked back at him. No, it is human. She left the room, her footsteps echoing in the metal hallway. Behind her, the aliens exchanged glances. They had seen many species react to loss with denial. It was normal. It was expected. But something in the human woman's eyes made Specialist Varn feel strange. It was not denial he saw there. It was not grief or desperation. It was something older. Something that had kept a small, weak species alive on a dangerous planet for millions of years. It was the refusal to accept the impossible. Outside, the storm raged on. And somewhere far below, in the darkness of the alien jungle, Yun Taiho opened his eyes.